A beam of light pierces a dark chamber on a morning our calendars have forgotten. These ancient stone structures scattered across the world are locked in a silent conversation with the sky, aligned to celestial cycles that have vanished from human memory. Why did our ancestors build with such precision to track stars and solstices we no longer observe? And what profound knowledge did they encode in stone? By the end of this journey, you will understand the hidden language of megalithic astronomy and see the cosmos through the eyes of a forgotten age. We will uncover why these alignments were made and what they reveal about a lost connection to the universe. What part of our own history do you think is still waiting in the stones to be rediscovered? These structures are masterpieces of patient observation. To align a doorway so that the rising sun on the summer solstice sends a beam of light precisely down a central corridor requires more than just a single season of watching the sky. It demands generations of sky watchers meticulously recording the sun's slow, yearly dance, the moon's more complex 18.6-year cycle, and the steady march of specific stars. They had to notice the subtle patterns, the points where these celestial bodies appeared to pause, turn back, or reach an extreme position. This long-term collective memory was then translated into architecture, a permanent record carved not on fragile parchment but into the very bones of the earth. Think of Newgrange in Ireland, a 5,000-year-old passage tomb. Its entire design anticipates one single, fleeting moment. For just a few days around the winter solstice, and only if the morning is clear, the dawn sun climbs above the horizon and a narrow beam of golden light shoots through a specially designed roof box, creeping slowly down the long, dark passage to finally illuminate the inner chamber. This event lasts for just 17 minutes. It is not an accident. It is a feat of engineering and astronomical prediction that rivals many modern constructions. Why go to such immense effort for a spectacle seen by so few? The answer lies in what these events represented. The solstice was not just a date on a calendar. It was a moment of profound spiritual and practical significance. The sun's return after the darkest day of the year was a promise of renewal, a victory of light over darkness, a signal for the community to gather and reaffirm their place in the cosmic order. The chamber itself, often a resting place for the remains of ancestors, became a bridge between the world of the living, the world of those who had passed, and the timeless cycles of the heavens. It synchronized human ritual with celestial rhythm, creating a powerful, tangible link between the community and the cosmos. This was a worldview where the universe was alive, intelligent, and intimately connected to human fate. This alignment at Newgrange is a whisper from a world without written records, a deliberate signal encoded in stone and light. To achieve this, the builders had to first identify the solstice sunrise as a significant turning point, a moment when the sun appears to stand still at the horizon before beginning its journey back north. They then engineered a structure of staggering scale to capture that single event. The massive mound covering over an acre of land is not just a pile of earth. It is a precisely shaped instrument, its entrance framed by a uniquely designed opening called a roof box. This was not a simple doorway, but a carefully calibrated window that filters the sun's rays, creating that narrow, penetrating beam. The long, dark passageway acts as a telescope, directing the light deep into the heart of the structure, to a chamber that may have served as a final resting place for important individuals. The entire process, from initial observation to final construction, represents a multi-generational project, a testament to a society that valued celestial order above all else. The spiral and diamond carvings on the surrounding curbstones are not mere decoration. Many researchers interpret these recurring motifs as symbols of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, a visual representation of the very cosmic drama being played out by the sun each year. This was far more than a calendar. It was a sacred theater where the community could witness the ultimate promise of renewal. The sun, at its weakest point, was welcomed back into the world, its light reaching into the chamber of the ancestors, symbolically uniting the past, present, and future in a single golden moment. This profound connection between the earthly and the celestial raises a compelling question. If the farmers of ancient Ireland could achieve such a feat, what other sophisticated knowledge was being practiced simultaneously in other stone chambers across Europe, and how did their cosmic observations differ? Far to the north, on the windswept Orkney Islands, the grass-covered mound of Maeshowe holds its own secret. Built around 2,800 years before the Common Era, this chambered cairn is a testament to a different kind of celestial alignment. While Newgrange welcomes the rising sun, Maeshowe is a monument to its departure. On the days surrounding the winter solstice, the setting sun in the southwest sinks perfectly in line with its long, narrow entrance passage. For a brief, brilliant moment, a shaft of light travels the entire length of the corridor to strike the rear wall of its central chamber, illuminating the darkness with a final, dramatic farewell. This was not a hopeful greeting of the dawn, but a solemn observation of the sun's deepest descent. The architecture itself speaks of immense effort. The passageway is constructed so low that one must crouch to enter, a deliberate design that frames the horizon with perfect accuracy. Inside, the main chamber is a marvel of Neolithic stonemasonry, with massive upright slabs supporting a corbelled roof that has remained watertight for millennia. This was more than a tomb. It was a sophisticated instrument designed to mark the year's pivotal transition. Centuries after its builders were gone, Vikings sought shelter within these walls, leaving behind runic inscriptions that speak of treasure and intrigue. These later visitors clearly felt the power of the place, though the original purpose of the solstice alignment was likely a mystery to them. Archaeologists suggest this precise orientation was central to rituals that connected the community to the cycle of the year. The sun's light plunging into the heart of the tomb would have powerfully symbolized themes of descent and the hope for eventual return, linking the fading light with the promise of its rebirth. How could a society without written plans or metal tools achieve such a lasting and precise feat of engineering? The answer hints at a shared body of knowledge. Maeshowe is not an isolated wonder. It is part of a vast ritual landscape on Orkney, with its alignment mirroring other nearby sites like the Stones of Stenness. This points to a culture where astronomical observation was a cornerstone of belief and community life, a sophisticated science passed down through generations and expressed in earth and stone. Deep beneath the modern streets of Malta, a different kind of celestial chamber waits in absolute silence. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is not a mound built upon the earth, but a labyrinthine sanctuary painstakingly carved from the living rock itself, a subterranean world created over centuries around 5,000 years ago. Here, the concept of alignment takes on a new dimension. This was not about framing the horizon, but about bringing traces of the cosmos down into a completely man-made underworld. On its deepest level, a chamber known as the Holy of Holies presents one of the site's greatest mysteries. Researchers like Frank Ventura have studied how specific openings and shafts, some now blocked by millennia of silt and development, might have been designed to channel narrow beams of sunlight. It is theorized that on the equinoxes, when day and night are of equal length, A sliver of light could have penetrated the deepest darkness to strike a particular niche or spiraled carving, momentarily connecting the inner sanctum to the cosmic balance occurring outside. This suggests a profound desire to synchronize even the most hidden rituals with the universal clock. But the Hypogeum's power was not visual alone. The very stone of this place seems to hold a memory of sound. Certain chambers are acoustically tuned, resonating at specific low frequencies that can amplify the human voice or the beat of a drum, creating an immersive experience that would have been both physically felt and deeply spiritual. Imagine the impact of a ritual held in such a space. In the profound darkness, a chant begins, its vibrations echoing through the rock and through the bodies of the participants. Then, at the precise moment, a beam of sunlight pierces the gloom, illuminating a sacred symbol. This fusion of light and sound would have created an overwhelming sensory event, transforming an abstract astronomical event into a personal, visceral revelation. Why go to such lengths underground? The answer may lie in the ultimate purpose of the Hypogeum. It served as both a sanctuary and a final resting place for the remains of countless individuals, a place where the community confronted the cycles of life and what lies beyond. By embedding celestial alignments deep within the earth, the builders physically and symbolically united the heavens, the world of the living, and the realm of the ancestors. The Hypogeum challenges our very definition of an observatory. It reveals a society that did not merely watch the sky from a distance, but sought to weave its rhythms into the fabric of their most sacred spaces, even those carved into the darkness below. If their knowledge allowed them to orchestrate light and sound with such precision, what other forgotten sciences might have been practiced in these echoing halls? Across the world, in the arid coastal deserts of Peru, an entirely different kind of celestial machine stands against the sky. The 13 towers of Chankillo are not a single chamber but a sequence of stark, rectangular structures marching along the crest of a barren hill. Constructed by a pre-Inca culture over 2,300 years ago, this complex is one of the oldest known solar observatories in the Americas, and its design is breathtakingly simple and effective. From two distinct observation points on either side of the ridge, a viewer could watch the sun rise or set, its position shifting along the line of towers throughout the year. On the June solstice, the sun would rise at the far right end of the sequence. Each day, its rising point would move steadily leftward, tower by tower, until it reached the far left end at the December solstice, before beginning its journey back again. This was a calendar built into the landscape, one that could pinpoint the date to within just a few days. Imagine the power this gave the community. A single glance at the horizon at dawn could tell you everything you needed to know about the season, the coming rains, the time to plant, or the time to harvest. It regulated the ceremonial cycle, telling people when to gather for festivals in honor of the sun. It may have even dictated the timing of other important activities, like the beginning or end of conflicts. The precision of this calendar was not a matter of abstract curiosity. It was the very heartbeat of society, synchronizing human activity with the unwavering rhythm of the cosmos. The work of archaeoastronomer Ivan Gezi was crucial in confirming this function, proving that the towers were not a defensive wall or a random grouping, but a meticulously placed instrument for tracking the sun's annual path. How did they manage such accuracy without written records or complex tools? The answer lies in generations of patient observation, a deep, collective memory of the sun's slow dance, translated into a permanent stone record that everyone could see and understand. This open, horizontal design stands in stark contrast to the dark, enclosed chambers of Europe. At Chankillo, the calendar was not a secret revealed to a few in a hidden chamber, but a public spectacle, a shared knowledge that unified the entire community under the same celestial clock. The towers are a powerful reminder that the drive to measure time by the sky is a universal human impulse, solved in different ways by cultures who never met, yet who all looked up at the same sun and asked the same fundamental questions about their place in the universe. This cosmic clockwork is not fixed. The sky our ancestors mapped so meticulously has slowly drifted over the centuries due to a subtle wobble in our planet's rotation. This gradual shift, known as precession, changes our view of the stars over a vast cycle of 26,000 years. It means the celestial stage has been slowly turning, so that the markers ancient builders used are no longer where they once were. The North Star Polaris is a temporary guide. Thousands of years ago, the star Thuban in the constellation Draco held that position, and in another 13,000 years, the brilliant Vega will become the pole star. This profound shift implies that some stone chambers, perfectly aligned to a star that has since drifted, now point silently into empty space, their original target lost to the slow dance of the heavens. This precessional drift forces us to look at these sites with different eyes. To understand their original purpose, we must digitally rewind the sky, calculating where the stars stood when the builders laid the first stone. A chamber doorway that today frames nothing of note might, 4,000 years ago, have been perfectly aligned with the heliacal rising of a specific star. This first dawn appearance of a star after a period of invisibility was a powerful signal in the ancient world. In Egypt, the rising of Sirius just before the sun heralded the imminent flooding of the Nile, the lifeblood of the civilization. That single celestial event dictated the entire agricultural and ritual cycle. A stone chamber aligned to such a moment was not just an observatory, it was a vital early warning system, connecting celestial events to the survival of the community. Beyond the annual solar cycle, ancient sky watchers tracked more complex rhythms. The moon has its own long dance, an 18.6-year cycle where its rising and setting points on the horizon sweep between northern and southern extremes. Some monuments, like the famous Stonehenge, show alignments that may have marked the moon's most extreme positions during this major standstill, an event that would have held deep ceremonial significance. Other cultures built their calendars around the intricate interplay of the sun and moon. Lunisolar calendars, used by many early societies, had to periodically insert an extra month to keep the lunar months in sync with the solar year and the seasons. These intercalated months and grand cycles, like the ancient Egyptian Sothic cycle based on Sirius, are calendars we no longer use, their rhythms forgotten by all but a few scholars. The stones, however, remember. They are frozen snapshots of a forgotten cosmos, capturing celestial relationships that have since unraveled. Reconstructing these lost alignments is like deciphering a code. It reveals not just astronomical skill, but the cultural priorities of a people. What was so important that they went to such effort to immortalize it in stone? The answer is written in the silent geometry of the chambers and the slow, patient motion of the stars. The silent stones do not give up their secrets easily. Their alignment to the sky is a claim made across millennia, and proving it requires a unique science. Archaeoastronomy stands at this crossroads, blending the hard data of astronomy with the contextual clues of archaeology and anthropology. It asks not just if a structure points to a star, but why that connection mattered to the people who built it. This journey from speculation to evidence began in earnest in the mid-20th century with pioneers like Alexander Thom. He spent decades meticulously surveying hundreds of megalithic sites across Britain and France, using tools like theodolites to map stones with incredible precision. His work suggested that our Neolithic ancestors used a complex, standardized unit of measurement and possessed a sophisticated understanding of lunar cycles. Around the same time, Gerald Hawkins used some of the earliest computers to test alignments at Stonehenge, proposing it could have been used to predict eclipses. These early efforts sparked both excitement and debate, establishing a new, more rigorous framework for asking questions of the ancient sky. Today, the tools of discovery have evolved dramatically. Modern archaeoastronomers no longer rely solely on ground surveys. They use satellite imagery to understand a site's relationship with the entire landscape. They build precise three-dimensional digital models of a structure and pair them with advanced software that can rewind the sky, accounting for precessional drift to show exactly which stars or sunrises would have been visible from that doorway 4,000 years ago. This technological leap is crucial for verification. It helps separate a true, intentional alignment from a mere coincidence of geography. A single alignment might be happenstance, but when multiple features at a site, from a main passage to smaller apertures, all point to significant celestial events, the statistical probability of intentional design grows overwhelming. Yet the greatest challenge remains interpreting the human purpose behind the alignment. The most precise astronomical data is meaningless without cultural context. This is where collaboration becomes essential. Researchers now actively work with historians and, where possible, with indigenous knowledge holders who carry oral traditions passed down through countless generations. These traditions can offer invaluable insights that pure data cannot. An ethnographic account might describe a solstice ceremony, or a story might explain why a particular star was considered an ancestor or a guide. This fusion of high technology and deep cultural memory enriches the interpretation, transforming a cold astronomical line of sight into a lived spiritual experience. It helps us understand that tracking the Pleiades cluster was not just about marking time, but about knowing when to begin a sacred migration. The central question of intentionality is therefore answered not by one piece of evidence, but by a confluence of them: the astronomical data, the architectural design, and the cultural narrative, all weaving together to tell a complete story. As our tools grow sharper and our collaborations broader, what other forgotten dialogues between Earth and sky will we finally learn to hear? The stones were more than calendars, they were conduits to the divine. For the people who built them, the sun was not a distant ball of gas, it was a living god. The moon was not a barren rock, but a powerful, cyclical force. By capturing the first ray of the solstice sun deep within a chamber, they were not just marking a date, they were literally drawing the power of that deity into their world, harnessing its energy for the benefit of the community. This celestial architecture was a form of communion, a physical prayer enacted in earth and stone. The entire society was synchronized to this cosmic rhythm. The solstice was not just a day, it was a signal. It was the time for the entire community to gather, to witness the alignment, and to participate in rituals led by a spiritual elite. These leaders, whether priests or chiefs, held the knowledge of the skies. Their ability to predict the sun's return or the star's appearance validated their authority. It proved they could intercede with the forces that controlled the rain, the harvest, and life itself. A ceremony at a place like Newgrange, with the sun dramatically reclaiming the tomb, was a powerful performance of this sacred contract. It reinforced the social order under the undeniable logic of the heavens. This connection extended deeply into beliefs about life and what follows it. The cyclical nature of the cosmos, the endless setting and rising of the sun, provided a comforting template for human existence. A tomb aligned with the winter solstice sunset, like Maeshowe, did not just mark a death. It symbolized a necessary descent, a dark night that promised a dawn. The soul of the individual inside was perhaps believed to be carried away on that last beam of light, or to be reborn with the sun's return, just as the sun itself was reborn each year. The architecture facilitated a journey, linking the fate of the person to the timeless cycles of the universe. This worldview was expressed with stunning clarity by cultures separated by vast oceans. The ancient Egyptians oriented their pyramids with pinpoint accuracy to circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable ones, believing the soul of the pharaoh would ascend to join them for eternity. Half a world away, the Maya designed their temples so that the sun, on the equinoxes, would create a pattern of light and shadow resembling a serpent slithering down the pyramid stairs, embodying the descent of their feathered serpent god, Kukulkan. The same astronomical event, the equinox, inspired two completely different mythologies, yet both used architecture to make their creation stories physically manifest for all to see. These sites were not primitive technology. They were the highest philosophical and spiritual statements of their age, profound explorations of humanity's place in a vast, intelligent, and living cosmos. Their silent stones ask us a simple, haunting question. In our modern world of digital calendars and electric light, what have we forgotten in our relationship with the sky? The sheer ambition of these projects is staggering. To move stones weighing many tons across miles of rugged terrain, then position them with an accuracy that rivals modern laser levels, seems almost impossible without modern machinery. Yet they did it using nothing more than levers, ropes, and the coordinated strength of their entire community. The first step was not moving stone, but understanding the sky. A single wooden stake planted in the earth could become their most important tool. By tracking the long, shifting shadow it cast throughout the day and across the seasons, a skilled observer could map the sun's entire journey. They would mark the extreme points where the sun's shadow stopped and turned back at the solstices, creating a permanent, physical record of the year's pivotal moments on the ground itself. This simple gnomon, a shadow caster, was their precision instrument. This celestial knowledge then had to be translated into architecture. Using pegs and long cords made of plant fiber or leather, they could lay out the foundation lines for a passage tomb, stretching a cord taut between two stakes to ensure the walls would be perfectly straight and aimed precisely at a distant horizon notch where the solstice sun would rise. To keep everything level over long distances, they likely used water-filled trenches, a simple yet profoundly effective method that relies on water always finding its own level. The initial construction was just the beginning. Evidence suggests these sites were not built in a single generation, but were refined over decades or even centuries. A grandparent might have laid the foundation stones based on their observations, while their grandchildren completed the roof, making subtle adjustments to the inner chambers based on how the light actually fell during a solstice sunrise. The small roof box opening at Newgrange is a perfect example of this iterative refinement, a feature that could only have been perfected through repeated observation and careful modification. The physical labor involved was monumental. To transport a massive stone block, they might have constructed a sledge from a freshly cut tree trunk, placing the stone atop it and using ropes to pull it over a path of lubricated logs. This would require a huge, coordinated team working in unison, a feat of social organization as much as engineering. Once on site, raising a multi-ton slab into position as a roof or lintel likely involved a combination of levers, earthen ramps, and sheer manpower, inching the stone into place over many days. The corbelled vault inside Newgrange, where each successive layer of stone projects slightly inward until the roof is sealed, shows a deep, intuitive understanding of load bearing and compression. They even engineered a waterproof barrier by carefully stacking rubble between the stone roof and the outer earthen mound, a design so effective it has kept the inner chamber dry for over 5,000 years. This was not crude construction, it was a sophisticated, long-term collaboration between the community and the cosmos, a relentless pursuit of precision to honor the rhythms of the universe. What knowledge was lost when the last of these master builders passed from memory, taking their silent, practical wisdom with them? These stories were not mere entertainment, they were the textbooks of their time. Before a single blueprint for a stone chamber could be drawn in the earth, the knowledge of what to build and why was held in the collective memory of the people, passed from one generation to the next through the power of spoken word. In cultures around the world, the oral tradition was the hard drive that stored astronomical data, and myth was the operating system that made it accessible and unforgettable. Consider the intricate star lore of Aboriginal Australians, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. Their Dreamtime stories are woven with celestial information. A tale about a group of sisters fleeing into the sky might encode the position and movement of the Pleiades star cluster. The first pre-dawn appearance of this cluster in the eastern sky signaled the arrival of a season of abundance, a time to gather certain foods or to begin a ceremonial cycle. This knowledge, embedded in narrative, was far more resilient than a list of dates. It was a living map of the heavens, directly tied to survival and spirituality, remembered because it mattered deeply to the community's way of life. This personification of the cosmos made complex cycles easier to recall. Norse mythology, for instance, spoke of two wolves, Skurll and Hati, eternally chasing the sun and moon across the sky. The story explained that an eclipse occurred when one of these wolves finally caught its prey. This vivid imagery served as a powerful mnemonic. It transformed an abstract astronomical event into a dramatic, memorable story, helping a farming community remember that these celestial disturbances were predictable parts of a larger, ongoing celestial drama. It was a way of saying that the sun would always return because the chase was eternal. For the builders of the stone chambers, this sacred knowledge was likely the domain of a select few. A specialized lineage of elders, priests, or sky watchers would have been the custodians of this lore. They were the living libraries who memorized the precise timing for solstice ceremonies, the meaning behind a specific star's alignment with a doorway, and the intricate chants that accompanied the observation of the moon's 18.6-year cycle. They did not use written notes but sophisticated mental tools. Repetitive poetry, rhythmic songs, and symbolic art carved on standing stones all acted as memory aids, locking in complex information like the Metonic cycle, which synchronizes solar years and lunar months over a period of 19 years. The reliability of this system was profound, but its vulnerability was absolute. As long as the chain of knowledge remained unbroken, an oral tradition could preserve information with remarkable accuracy for centuries. We see this in indigenous cultures today, where elders can recite genealogies and histories that span hundreds of years. The knowledge was not static, it was performed, rehearsed, and reinforced through annual rituals at the very stone chambers that gave the cycle's physical form. The ceremony at Newgrange was not just a spectacle, it was a vital rehearsal of the knowledge itself. However, if that chain was shattered by cultural collapse, by the arrival of new belief systems, or by the tragic loss of a community's elders, the knowledge could vanish in a single generation. The silent stones would remain, but the key to their celestial language would be lost, leaving behind a magnificent puzzle. This deep intertwining of myth and observation reveals a fundamental truth about our ancestors. For them, there was no separation between science and story. A myth was not a falsehood, it was a framework for understanding the world. It provided the why, while meticulous observation provided the how. They were two sides of the same coin in the human quest to find meaning in the grand, orderly, and beautiful mystery of the night sky. While the sun's annual dance governed the seasons, the moon offered a more complex rhythm. On the windswept coast of Brittany, the Carnac alignments speak to this deeper, more patient understanding of the sky. Thousands of standing stones stretch for kilometers across the landscape, arranged in sweeping parallel rows that seem to march toward the horizon. These are not chambers to capture a single beam of light, but a vast open-air temple aligned to the moon's slow 18.6-year cycle. During what is known as a major lunar standstill, the moon does not simply rise and set in the same narrow band as the sun. Instead, it reaches extreme points far to the north and south, rising in a low, sweeping arc or climbing to a breathtaking height. The builders of Karnak, who raised these granite menhirs over a 1,000-year period, engineered their entire landscape to frame this rare celestial event. The scale is almost beyond comprehension. At the Carnac and Mayan alignments, the stones are not placed randomly. They form precise avenues, and researchers like Aubrey Burle have proposed that these lines point directly toward the horizon notches where the moon would appear at its most extreme northern and southern rising points. This was not a calendar for marking the days of a year, but a long-term observatory for tracking a generational cycle. For a society of Neolithic farmers and herders, the major standstill would have been a moment of profound significance. It represented the climax of a cosmic story that took nearly 2 decades to unfold. The community that began observing the moon's slow creep along the horizon as children would witness its final, dramatic extreme as adults. This event likely signaled a time for great gatherings, for ceremonies that united scattered communities, and for rituals that sought to harness the moon's unique power. The alignments may have even functioned as a giant calculator. By tracking the moon's path against this permanent stone grid, the keepers of this knowledge could predict other events, such as lunar eclipses, which only occur when the sun and moon are in perfect opposition. This transformed the entire complex from a simple marker into a predictive instrument, a testament to a sophisticated lunar science. What would it have been like to stand among those stones during a major standstill? Imagine the moon, huge and low on the horizon, perfectly framed at the end of a corridor of ancient menhirs. Its light would have washed over the participants, connecting them physically to a cycle that transcended a single human life. The ceremonies held here would have reaffirmed a sacred contract with the cosmos, one written not in the bright certainty of the sun, but in the subtle, silver light of the moon. This vast monument reminds us that our ancestors were not just watching the sky, they were listening to its most complex melodies and building in stone to remember the tune. These intricate systems of timekeeping were not abstract concepts, but the very pulse of a civilization. The Coligny calendar, a fragmented bronze tablet unearthed in France, offers a glimpse into the mind of Iron Age Europe. This was a lunisolar calendar, a complex dance between the phases of the moon and the journey of the sun. Its months alternated between 29 and 30 days, mirroring the lunar cycle, but to prevent the seasons from drifting, an entire extra month was inserted every 2.5 years. This intercalation was a monumental act of synchronization, a way to force the fickle moon back into alignment with the steadfast sun. The calendar was not just for farmers. It almost certainly dictated the timing of sacred festivals and community gatherings. Specific alignments at stone circles and burial mounds across Gaul may have pointed to the rising of a particular star or the position of the sun on dates that held special meaning in this bronze ledger. The calendar gave order to both the spiritual and the practical world. Its rigid structure imposed upon the fluid rhythms of nature. Yet, with the expansion of the Roman Empire and its different calendar, this deeply rooted system faded from use. Its knowledge became fragmented, its purpose forgotten, leaving the stones it once governed silent and misunderstood. A similar, yet even more vast, conception of time unfolded in the Maya world. Their long count calendar measured time in grand cycles called bactons, each one spanning 144,000 days. This was not a calendar for marking a single human life or even a single dynasty. It was a timeline for the cosmos itself, charting epochs of creation and transformation. The famous turn of the cycle in 2012 was not a prophecy of doom, but the end of one great cycle and the anticipated beginning of the next, a moment of cosmic renewal. This grand chronology was not merely written in codices. It was built into the landscape. Temples were aligned to mark the completion of these immense periods, their architecture designed to capture the sun on a specific day, casting shadows that perhaps symbolize the closing of one age and the dawning of another. The precision required to track a cycle lasting nearly 400 years speaks of an unbroken lineage of sky watchers, their observations passed down through generations. The decline of the classic Maya cities and the arrival of new worldviews led to the abandonment of this intricate system. The stones still stand, pointing to celestial events that were once moments of supreme importance, but the calendar that gave them meaning is now a subject of academic study rather than a living faith. Why do these calendars vanish? They often fall silent not from inaccuracy, but from cultural upheaval, conquest, the imposition of new religions, or the collapse of the societal structures that supported the priestly classes can sever the chain of oral tradition in a single generation. The knowledge so carefully maintained for centuries simply has no one left to speak it. The structures remain, but the song they were built to sing is forgotten. This reveals a profound difference in how these cultures perceive time. For us, time is often a straight line, an arrow moving from past to future. For the keepers of the Coligny and long count calendars, time was a wheel, a series of repeating sacred cycles. The end of a cycle was not an extinction, but a moment of potential rebirth, a recalibration of the world's spiritual energy. To lose these calendars is to lose a unique lens on the universe, a way of seeing our place within an animate, cyclical cosmos. What other rhythms of the heavens, once vital to human survival and spirit, have we simply forgotten how to hear? These carvings are a language without a dictionary, a codex written in stone. We see the same patterns repeating across continents and centuries, from the deep spirals of Newgrange to the rayed circles on Iberian dolmens. The famous triple spiral inside Newgrange's end chamber, positioned exactly where the solstice sunbeam touches, is a powerful example. It could represent the three phases of the moon, the three realms of earth, sky, and underworld, or the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth that the solstice light itself was meant to enact. This was not simple decoration. It was a permanent illustration of the cosmic drama occurring within the chamber, a visual anchor for the ceremony and its meaning. Far to the south, in the tombs of the Iberian Peninsula, a different symbol dominates. Carvings of circles surrounded by radiating lines are widely interpreted as sun symbols. These are not literal portraits of the sun, but likely representations of its power, its life-giving energy, and its central role in the community's worldview. Placing such an emblem at the entrance to a tomb or within a chamber aligned to the solstice would have powerfully linked the individual's journey with the solar cycle, suggesting a belief in renewal or a celestial destination. Inside Malta's Hypogeum, the symbols take on a more mysterious, inward quality. The walls of its deepest chambers are adorned with spirals painted in red ochre, a pigment rich with symbolic meaning. These spirals might chart the labyrinthine path of the soul after its earthly journey, a difficult passage through an underworld guided by the stars painted on the ceiling above. They could also mirror the swirling patterns of the night sky or the cyclical nature of time itself. The art here was part of a full sensory experience where the symbols, the resonant acoustics, and the piercing shafts of light worked together to create a transformative ritual space. Interpreting this art requires us to think in metaphor and association. How can we decode this visual language? We look for patterns. When a spiral repeatedly appears in places associated with burials and solstice alignments, it becomes reasonable to link it to concepts of journey, cycles, and rebirth. When a sun symbol is carved at a tomb's entrance, it suggests a belief in the sun as a guide or a promise of light after darkness. The work of scholars like Marija Gimbutas, who studied the recurring iconography of Old Europe, suggests that many of these motifs, from spirals to zigzags, were part of a shared symbolic vocabulary centered on the forces of nature, the sacred feminine, and the continuous regeneration of life, all intimately tied to the observed rhythms of the moon and sun. A zigzag might not just be a pattern, but a representation of water, lightning, or the undulating path of the sun through the seasons. These symbols taught a worldview. For an initiate entering a dark chamber, the carvings were a map of the cosmos and a guide to their place within it. They told a story of order, of cycles within cycles, and of a universe where human life, death, and the celestial dance were all part of one interconnected whole. The stones were not just aligned to the sky, they were illustrated with its meaning, creating a sacred text that could be read by anyone who understood its symbolic language. What stories would these silent walls tell us if we could only remember how to listen? This same celestial conversation echoes from the deserts of Egypt to the high plains of Wyoming. Long before the Great Pyramids rose, a different stone circle stood at Nabta Playa. Around 5,000 years before the Common Era, a community of cattle herders in what is now the Sahara Desert arranged a series of stones into a circle and sightlines. These stones were not randomly placed. They align with the rising point of the summer solstice sun, a critical marker for a nomadic people dependent on seasonal rains. Some stones also point toward the rising positions of key stars, including Sirius and the belt of Orion, creating a calendar etched into the desert floor. This was sophisticated astronomy practiced by a pastoral society, a clear precursor to the later, more monumental achievements along the Nile. It reveals a deep-seated human need to track time and understand the heavens, a need that arose independently across the globe. Far across the Atlantic, on the high, windswept plateau of the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming, the medicine wheel tells a similar story. This sacred structure, built from stones laid in a spoked wheel pattern, has been a ceremonial site for numerous Plains indigenous nations for centuries. Its alignments are precise and intentional. One key spoke points directly to the horizon where the summer solstice sun rises. Another aligns with the heliacal rising of the bright star Aldebaran, an event that would have signaled a specific time of year for rituals, gatherings, or the beginning of a seasonal migration. This was not an observatory in a modern scientific sense, but a place where practical astronomy and profound spirituality were one and the same. The wheel connected the people to the rhythms of the earth and sky, a physical manifestation of their worldview. Further south, in the Andes, the ancient city of Tiwanaku in Bolivia demonstrates a different architectural expression of the same universal impulse. Here, massive stone gateways and elevated platforms are oriented with meticulous care. The famous Gateway of the Sun, for instance, is aligned to capture the first rays of the sun on the equinoxes, illuminating the intricate carvings of a central deity. The entire urban plan seems to reflect a cosmic order, with buildings and plazas positioned to mark solar and lunar events that governed both agriculture and state religion. From the Sahara to the Andes to the American West, we see a recurring pattern, a convergence of human ingenuity. How could cultures with no possible contact arrive at such similar architectural solutions? The answer may lie in shared human experiences. All people lived under the same sun and moon. All faced the same fundamental challenges of survival, needing to predict seasonal changes for planting and harvesting. All looked up at the night sky with a sense of wonder and a desire to find meaning in its orderly patterns. This combination of practical necessity and spiritual yearning, channeled through the universal human capacity for pattern recognition, led to a spontaneous generation of celestial architecture. It was not a technology that was diffused from a single source, but a fundamental aspect of human culture emerging again and again, a testament to our innate drive to build our world in harmony with the cosmos. The alignment of stone and sky was not just a technical achievement, it was a story told by a culture about itself, yet many of these stories were interrupted. The arrival of colonial powers across the globe often brought with it a deliberate suppression of indigenous knowledge systems. Traditional custodians of sacred sites were displaced, and the oral traditions that carried the meaning of celestial alignments for generations were disrupted or, in many cases, expressly forbidden. This created a profound rupture in human understanding. In the Americas, Spanish chroniclers who witnessed the advanced astronomical practices of the Maya often dismissed them as mere superstition. They failed to record the precise functions of the observatory at Chichen Itza, a structure whose windows and platforms are perfectly aligned with the movements of Venus and the Sun. For centuries, its true purpose remained a silent mystery, only later pieced together through patient archaeological study. A similar fate befit the rich astronomical knowledge of Aboriginal Australians. Their detailed narratives, like the emu in the sky, a constellation formed not by stars but by the dark patches of the Milky Way, were marginalized. This emu's changing position throughout the year signaled the timing for egg gathering and other vital seasonal activities, a complex ecological calendar embedded in story. For a long time, this was not seen as science, and a vast repository of practical and spiritual wisdom was nearly lost. The consequence of this erasure is that the original meaning behind some alignments may be gone forever. A stone that points to a specific star no longer carries the story of why that star was an ancestor or a guide. The cultural context that breathed life into the geometry has been fractured. Yet, a hopeful correction is now underway. Modern research is increasingly built on partnership. Archaeologists and anthropologists are collaborating with indigenous communities, combining laser scanning and satellite imagery with traditional stories and elder knowledge. This holistic approach is allowing for a more nuanced interpretation, where scientific data and oral history illuminate each other. A star alignment confirmed by software gains its human significance from a story passed down through the ages. This collaborative model raises essential ethical questions for our time. How do we engage with indigenous knowledge respectfully, ensuring it is not simply extracted, but that the communities who preserved it are central to the process and benefit from the exchange? Researchers today carry a responsibility to work not just on these communities, but with them, acknowledging their deep lineage and rightful role as the interpreters of their own heritage. To truly understand the silent language of the stones, we must first listen to the voices of the people who never forgot how to listen to the sky. The secrets of these ancient stones are now being unlocked by beams of light from the sky. Modern LiDAR technology, which fires millions of laser pulses from an aircraft to map the ground below, is stripping away forests and fields to reveal landscapes we never knew existed. Around the famous circle of Stonehenge, LiDAR surveys have uncovered a vast and complex ceremonial world. The land was once dotted with processional avenues, burial mounds, and timber structures, all arranged in relation to the central stones. This reveals that the solstice alignment was not an isolated feature, but part of a grand, integrated design with multiple astronomical orientations, a sacred geography built to mirror the cosmos. This non-invasive eye in the sky allows us to see the full picture for the first time, showing these sites not as lonely monuments, but as the beating hearts of a ritual landscape. The investigation continues from the air down into the very stone. High-resolution 3D laser scanning now captures the interior surfaces of chambers with sub-millimeter precision. These scans can detect almost invisible patterns of wear on the floor, showing the paths of countless footsteps over centuries. They can map the subtle acoustics of a room, revealing how certain niches might amplify a specific chant or resonate with the beat of a drum, creating a tangible link between the physical vibration of sound and the spiritual experience of the ritual. This technology allows researchers to digitally test theories, simulating how a beam of light would travel through a passage on the equinox or how sound would fill a chamber, all without touching a single stone. For sites too fragile or sacred to excavate, this is a revolutionary tool. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses into the earth, painting a picture of what lies beneath the surface. It can locate hidden chambers, fallen stones, or the remains of ritual fires, giving us a blueprint of the unseen. Above it all, drones equipped with thermal cameras can detect subtle temperature variations in the stones at dawn, sometimes revealing which surfaces were engineered to absorb the first warmth of the sun, a hidden signature of its ancient function. To breathe life back into these silent alignments, astrophysicists use sophisticated software to rewind the celestial clock. By accounting for the slow precession of Earth's axis, they can recreate the exact sky that would have been visible from a chamber's doorway 5,000 years ago. A doorway that now points to empty space might, in this digital simulation, align perfectly with the brilliant rise of a star like Sirius, confirming a hypothesis that was once just an educated guess. This marriage of cutting-edge science and ancient wisdom is confirming the incredible intentionality of the builders. It proves that what we might have dismissed as folklore or coincidence was, in fact, a precise and sophisticated science of the sky. What other hidden conversations between Earth and cosmos are we on the verge of finally hearing? This question of purpose lies at the heart of the mystery. A skeptic might reasonably ask if we are simply seeing patterns where none exist. With so many stones placed across a landscape, is it not inevitable that a few will, entirely by chance, point toward a solstice sunrise or a significant star? This is where the science of statistics becomes crucial. Researchers must calculate the probability of such alignments occurring randomly. If only one stone at a site points to the winter solstice sunset, it could be coincidence. But if multiple architectural features, from the main passage to smaller portals and even outlier stones placed hundreds of feet away, all consistently target the same handful of celestial events across dozens of sites in a region, the odds of that happening by accident plummet dramatically. This is the core argument against theories like the idea of ley lines, which suggest ancient sites are connected by straight lines of cosmic energy. Mainstream scholarship largely rejects this, as drawing a straight line across a map filled with thousands of old sites will inevitably create random connections, a classic case of finding patterns in noise without any statistical or archaeological proof. The case for intentional design grows stronger when we look beyond a single site. Consider the passage tombs of Ireland. They do not face random directions. A clear majority are oriented toward the southeast, the general direction of the rising sun for much of the year, with the most elaborate ones like Newgrange pinpointing the solstices with breathtaking accuracy. This regional consistency is a powerful indicator of a shared cultural blueprint, a deliberate architectural tradition. The engineering itself provides another layer of proof. The immense effort to construct the roof box at Newgrange, a small, carefully calibrated opening that required precise stone corbelling to function, is not something built on a whim. It is the result of a clear, predetermined plan to achieve a specific visual effect. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from blending these hard facts with soft, human stories. Ethnographic records from cultures with unbroken ties to their ancestral past can offer a key. While we cannot ask the builders of Newgrange what they intended, we can listen to the oral histories of other indigenous peoples who built similar structures. Stories that describe solstice ceremonies or that venerate a specific star as an ancestor provide a cultural context that transforms a statistical alignment into a lived spiritual practice. This multidisciplinary approach, weaving together the cold math of probability, the physical proof of archaeology, and the warm thread of cultural memory, builds the most convincing case. It shows us that these alignments were not accidental byproducts of construction. They were the very reason for it. So the next time you stand before an ancient stone, ask not just if it points to the sky, but how many other stones around it are telling the same story. The same celestial principles that guided Neolithic builders were echoed millennia later in the sun-drenched courtyards of ancient Egypt. At the vast temple complex of Karnak, the main axis was not aligned by chance. It was oriented with precision toward the midwinter sunrise, a time when the sun was at its weakest, requiring ritual support to ensure its rebirth and the continued flow of life. The entire structure was a machine for maintaining cosmic order, known as Mot. When the pharaoh, the son of the sun god Ra, performed rituals in the inner sanctum on that pivotal morning, he was reenacting the first sunrise, channeling the sun's power to guarantee the annual flooding of the Nile and the stability of the kingdom. The alignment was a direct conduit between the divine ruler and the celestial source of his authority, a direct architectural lineage from the stone chambers that synchronized community ritual with the heavens. This desire to build in cosmic harmony did not end with the pharaohs. Centuries later, across Europe, master builders laying the foundations for Christian cathedrals continued the tradition. They carefully oriented their churches toward the east, the direction of the rising sun. But this was not a generic easterly direction. Each church was specifically aligned so that on the feast day of its patron saint, the dawn sun would stream directly through the great east window, flooding the altar in a blaze of light. This transformed the anniversary of a saint's passing into a tangible event, a moment where heaven touched earth. The light symbolized the resurrection of Christ and the promise of eternal life, using the same astronomical principles to express a new spiritual narrative. The massive Gothic structures with their soaring vaults meant to draw the eye upward were not just houses of worship, they were architectural representations of the universe, designed to make the divine manifest through the medium of light itself. Even sites of modern science and global timekeeping carry this ancient signature. The Greenwich Royal Observatory, the home of the prime meridian, is fundamentally a monument to celestial order. Its very purpose is to measure the motion of the stars and sun with ultimate precision, and its architecture reflects this with telescopes and sightlines fixed on the heavens. This is not superstition, but a continuation of that same human drive to ground our understanding of the world in the reliable cycles above us. The tradition stretches back to the oracle at Delphi in Greece, where the temple was positioned with consideration for solar and possibly stellar alignments, believed to be a place where the divine will could be heard. In every age, cultures have used the sky as a foundation for their most important structures. This unbroken thread of celestial architecture raises a profound question for our own time. How can the wisdom of ancient stone inform modern design? Today, architects are rediscovering these principles through sustainable design, using passive solar orientation to heat and cool buildings naturally, just as the sun's path dictated the placement of a tomb doorway. The emerging field of biophilic design seeks to reconnect human habitats with the natural world, and what is more fundamental to our environment than the sun and the stars. The ancient builders show us that the most resonant and enduring spaces are those that acknowledge our place within a larger cosmic order. They challenge us to look beyond mere utility and consider how our buildings can once again reflect the timeless rhythms of the sky, creating environments that nourish not just the body but the human spirit as well. What would our cities look like if they were consciously realigned with the cosmos? The stones were not only temples but also the world's first farmers' almanacs, their silent alignments dictating the rhythm of survival. A beam of light striking a specific carving on the spring equinox was far more than a spectacle. It was a direct command to begin sowing seeds. This precise synchronization with the solar cycle was a matter of life and death, ensuring crops were planted exactly when the soil was warm enough and the days long enough to support their growth. Similarly, the winter solstice marked the moment to assess the community's stored resources and perform rituals aimed at ensuring the land's fertility in the coming year. In this way, the celestial chamber was the central processing unit of the community, its annual cycle hardwired to the sun's unwavering clock. This practical knowledge was adapted to the unique challenges of each environment. In the arid landscape of Nabta Playa, the stone circle's alignments to Sirius and the solstice sun provided a critical forecast for nomadic herders, predicting the arrival of scarce seasonal rains and guiding the movement to new pastures. In the dense forests of Europe, where the horizon was often obscured, a chamber like Newgrange created an artificial, perfect horizon within its architecture, giving farmers a guaranteed, unmistakable signal unaffected by the surrounding terrain. The knowledge held within these structures allowed for long-term planning and resource management, stabilizing populations and enabling societies to flourish. How did pastoral communities use the sky? For the builders of the Karnak alignments, tracking the moon's complex cycle was not merely ceremonial. The major lunar standstill, occurring every 18.6 years, could have been used to schedule the breeding of livestock, ensuring that lambs and calves were born in the spring when food was abundant. This long-term calendar, etched in granite, allowed for the careful management of herds over generations, a sophisticated form of animal husbandry guided by the cosmos. From the deserts to the woodlands, the celestial chambers provided a reliable, shared schedule that coordinated the labor of an entire community, turning the abstract motions of the heavens into a practical blueprint for daily life and enduring prosperity. But who were the sky watchers whispering these alignments into stone? A quiet revolution is reshaping our understanding, suggesting the hands and minds that planned these celestial calendars may have belonged to women. Emerging evidence points to their significant roles as priestesses, healers, and the primary keepers of calendrical knowledge. In the vibrant art of the Minoan civilization on Crete, frescoes vividly show women leading elaborate public rituals. They are depicted holding symbols of power, surrounded by celestial imagery, suggesting their ceremonies were synchronized with the heavens, perhaps to invoke divine favor for the community's well-being. This was not a passive role, but one of active public leadership in spiritual and astronomical practice. Further back in time, across Neolithic Europe, archaeological finds tell a similar story. Grave goods buried with women often include figurines carved with lunar symbolism, crescents, cycles, and patterns that mirror the moon's phases. These artifacts strongly associate women with tracking time through the moon's rhythm, a skill deeply connected to the cycles of fertility, both in the human body and in the natural world of planting and harvest. The very motifs that adorn the chambers themselves may hold this key. The intricate triple spiral deep inside Newgrange, perfectly illuminated by the solstice sun, is often interpreted as a symbol of goddess worship or female generative power. It could represent the three stages of a woman's life: maiden, mother, and crone, or the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth that the community sought to harness. This was a worldview that likely valued women's wisdom as essential to maintaining harmony with the cosmos. The knowledge required to run these celestial clocks was not confined to grand monuments. In countless indigenous oral traditions, it is the grandmothers and female elders who are remembered as the teachers. They held the star lore, knowing that the first appearance of the Pleiades meant it was time to journey to the coast for shellfish, or that a certain star's position signaled the ripening of a crucial plant. This was practical, life-saving science, passed from mother to daughter over generations, while the immense physical labor of moving multi-ton stones likely involved many strong arms. The intellectual architecture, the planning of the alignments, and the direction of the ceremonies that gave them meaning could very well have been guided by women. Their intimate understanding of biological and lunar cycles would have made them the natural custodians of time itself. How do we recover these silenced contributions? The answer lies in looking beyond the stones to the artifacts, the art, and the enduring oral traditions that still carry echoes of their voices. Re-examining these sites through a gendered lens does not simply add women to the story. It fundamentally enriches our understanding of the entire society. It reveals a social complexity where scientific observation and spiritual leadership were not divided by gender, but were shared responsibilities aimed at sustaining the community. This perspective transforms a silent chamber from a mere astronomical instrument into a space that also honored the deep, cyclical wisdom of the women who helped bring it to life. The stones do not only speak through light but through sound. Deep within the Hypogeum of Malta, certain chambers are acoustically tuned to resonate at a specific, low frequency of 110 Hz. When a person chants or drums within this space, the sound is not merely heard, it is physically felt, vibrating through the stone and through the body. Modern studies suggest this precise frequency can shift brainwave patterns, potentially easing a listener into a state of deep calm or heightened focus. Imagine the impact during a ritual held at dawn on the equinox. The community would gather in absolute darkness, the air thick with anticipation. A low chant begins, its resonant frequency amplified by the very rock, creating a palpable energy. Then, at the precise moment of celestial balance, a slender beam of sunlight pierces the gloom, striking a carved spiral on the far wall. In that instant, the participants are not just observers, they are immersed in a unified sensory event where the vibrating sound and the divine light merge into a single, overwhelming experience. This was likely not an accident of construction, but a deliberate fusion of science and spirituality. The acoustic properties of these chambers added a profound, physical dimension to the ceremony, making abstract cosmological concepts like the sun's rebirth or the balance of the equinox something that could be felt in one's bones. Far from Malta, in the passage graves of Portugal, the architecture creates a different sonic phenomenon. The careful arrangement of stones can amplify a whisper, carrying it clearly to the far end of the chamber, or generate lingering, ethereal echoes that seem to come from the walls themselves. To a people who revered their ancestors, these disembodied voices might have been interpreted as the spirits of the past speaking through the stone, directly participating in the ritual. Researchers like Stephen J. Waller have found that many ancient ceremonial sites are located in places with unusual natural soundscapes, such as echoing cliffs or roaring waterfalls, suggesting that sound itself was a sacred element that influenced where our ancestors built. How did they achieve this? The builders likely discovered these acoustic properties through trial and error, perhaps noticing how sound behaved in a natural cave and then replicating or enhancing that effect in their own constructions. Modern experiments using sophisticated audio equipment within these spaces are now confirming the intentionality behind these designs. By recreating the sounds that would have filled these chambers during a solstice sunrise, we can begin to understand how the combination of resonant frequency, echoing voice, and dramatic light worked in concert to guide the consciousness of the participants, unifying the community not only in sight but in sound and spirit. This holistic approach reveals that the true purpose of these chambers was to engage every human sense, creating a bridge to the cosmos that was as much felt and heard as it was seen. A silent, rising tide now laps at the foundations of history. The very environmental stability that allowed our ancestors to build for the ages is shifting beneath the stones they left behind. Coastal sites, from the windswept Orkney Islands to the sun-baked cliffs of Malta, face an unprecedented threat from the escalating impacts of our changing climate. At the Neolithic village of Skara Brae, older than the pyramids, increasingly powerful storm surges now breach protective barriers, exposing 5,000-year-old stonework to corrosive saltwater. Each wave that washes over these ruins carries away a little more of the story, threatening to dissolve the physical context of a community whose sky watchers likely helped orient the great chamber of Maeshowe just a short distance away. This is not a slow decay, it is an active assault by a once predictable sea. Further south, the subterranean world of the Hypogeum in Malta faces a different kind of danger. The delicate balance of temperature and humidity that has preserved its red ochre spirals and resonant chambers for millennia is now fluctuating. Even minor changes in the moisture content of the air can cause the soft limestone to expand and contract, risking the gradual flaking and fading of its symbolic art. These carvings are a direct link to the minds of the people who orchestrated light and sound within that sacred space. Their loss would be like losing the key to a forgotten language just as we were learning to read it. The threat goes beyond the stones themselves, targeting the celestial conversation they were built to host. A single, massive storm could topple a key standing stone at a site like the stones of Stonehenge, throwing off an alignment that has framed the solstice sunset for over 5,000 years. If the ground beneath a passage grave becomes saturated and unstable, the entire structure could shift by a mere finger's width, enough for the solstice sunbeam to miss its target carving entirely, silencing the astronomical machine forever. Conservationists are engaged in a race against time. In some places, this means building modern seawalls to hold back the ocean, a stark, necessary intervention to protect the ancient. In others, it involves strictly limiting the number of visitors to the Hypogeum, as the very breath and body heat of tourists can alter the delicate microclimate. Advanced monitoring technology is being deployed, with sensors tracking minute movements in the stones and changes in the air, providing an early warning system for preservation teams. Yet these efforts are often hampered by a lack of funding and specialized expertise, leaving many smaller, equally important sites dangerously exposed. The potential loss is incalculable. Each aligned chamber is a non-renewable cultural resource, a unique chapter in humanity's collective autobiography. If one vanishes, we do not just lose a pile of old rocks, we lose a precise dataset of ancient astronomy, a masterpiece of Neolithic engineering and a sacred space that connected an entire community to the cosmos. The question is no longer just about understanding these sites, but about saving them. How can global organizations, governments, and local communities pool resources and knowledge to create a sustainable shield for these vulnerable wonders? And how does our own awareness, our decision to learn about and value this fragile heritage, become the most powerful conservation tool of all? The fight to preserve these stones is a fight to keep a window to the ancient sky open for every generation to come. That beam of light touching ancestral remains was more than a symbol, it was an active ritual of renewal. In the profound darkness of a passage grave, the community gathered not just to mourn, but to witness a tangible connection. They saw the sun's life-giving energy reach into the realm of their forebears, an act that would ensure the ancestors' continued vitality and, in turn, their benevolent watch over the living. This created a durable bridge across generations where the dead were not gone but transformed, their spirits synchronized with the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. The chamber became a focal point where the entire lineage of the community, past and present, was united under the celestial order. This deep need to link the fate of the soul with the heavens found expression in vastly different architectures. The pyramids of ancient Egypt were not just tombs, they were resurrection machines. Their narrow shafts, aligned with pinpoint accuracy to the stars of Orion's belt, were designed to channel the pharaoh's soul directly to the imperishable stars, the realm of the gods. For the Maya, darkness was not an end but a place of potential. In their sacred caves, which they saw as portals to the underworld, the penetration of a sunbeam on the equinox reenacted the mythic emergence of life and the first people from the darkness, framing death as a necessary prelude to rebirth. What variations existed in this cosmic integration? In some European tombs, the emphasis was on the seasonal return of the sun, its light promising the rebirth of the individual soul within the natural cycle. In Egypt, the focus was stellar and eternal, a one-way journey to join the fixed and unchanging stars. Yet the underlying principle was the same. By embedding their dead within this celestial framework, these cultures expressed a powerful hope that human existence was part of a grand, orderly, and repeating cosmic story. This practice profoundly shaped social memory. The annual pilgrimage to a tomb for the solstice ceremony was not a somber event, but a vital rehearsal of the community's identity and history. It was during these gatherings that stories of the ancestors were retold, their deeds remembered, and their authority invoked. The alignment itself became a physical proof of the community's ancient contract with the universe, a contract that legitimized leadership, reinforced social bonds, and provided a stable, cyclical view of time that comforted in the face of loss. These stone chambers were ultimately monuments to the most profound human desire, to find our place in a universe that endures, and to ensure that not even death can sever our connection to the great, turning wheel of the stars. The human drive to map the heavens has never truly ceased. It has simply changed its tools. The same unwavering curiosity that guided a stone into alignment with a solstice sunrise now guides the lens of the Hubble Space Telescope. Our Neolithic ancestors used the horizon as their laboratory, meticulously recording the sun's journey to mark the seasons and ensure their survival. Today, we launch observatories beyond our atmosphere to capture the light of galaxies born in the infancy of the universe, studying phenomena like dark matter and gravitational waves. The scale is incomprehensibly different, yet the fundamental impulse remains identical, a deep-seated need to comprehend the vastness around us and find our place within it. Both the ancient sky watcher and the modern astrophysicist are united by the same profound questions. How did everything begin? Does life exist beyond our world? What does our existence mean in the grand scheme of the cosmos? The stone chambers were our first permanent observatories, the initial steps in a systematic effort to record and understand the patterns of the sky. They are the foundation upon which all later astronomy was built. This long journey of discovery is now being enriched by a powerful fusion of traditions. Projects like the Native American Earth and Sky Initiative are weaving indigenous star knowledge, passed down through countless generations, with the data-driven approach of Western science. This collaboration offers a more holistic view of the cosmos, one that respects the cultural narratives of the stars while expanding our scientific understanding. It reminds us that our quest to know the universe is not a new story, but a very old one that we are still writing. How do we honor the legacy of those first astronomers while we reach for the stars? Perhaps the answer lies in remembering that every image from a space telescope, every new exoplanet discovered, is part of the same eternal conversation that began when a community gathered in a dark chamber to welcome the returning sun. That same golden beam that entered Newgrange 5,000 years ago still finds its mark today, and for the modern visitor standing in the chamber's chill darkness, its arrival can feel less like a spectacle and more like a personal message across time. This is not merely a reenactment of an ancient ritual. It is a direct sensory bridge to the minds of the people who engineered this moment with such impossible patience. As the light creeps slowly down the passageway, a powerful sense of awe often descends, a feeling so profound it can quiet the internal chatter of modern life and replace it with a deep, humbling connection. You are sharing an experience, a specific alignment of rock and light, with individuals separated from you by hundreds of generations. This emotional resonance is not an accident. It may have been the entire point. Researchers studying the psychology of awe find that this particular emotion, triggered by vast, transcendent experiences, has remarkable effects on the human mind. It can diminish the ego, making personal worries feel smaller against a grander backdrop, while simultaneously increasing feelings of connectedness to others and the world at large. For a Neolithic community, gathering to witness the sun's hard-won return after the year's longest night would have been a powerful, shared catharsis. The awe they collectively felt would have strengthened social bonds, reinforced their shared identity, and aligned their entire community with a cosmic purpose far greater than any single individual. This ancient psychological technology is just as potent now. In our era of digital distractions and relentless immediacy, the forced patience of waiting in a dark chamber for a sunrise that is not guaranteed by clear skies demands a different kind of attention. Environmental psychology suggests that spaces like these function as natural mindfulness chambers. They pull our perspective away from the minutiae of our daily lives and force it outward, onto the slow, dependable turn of the planet and the stately dance of celestial bodies. This shift in scale can be a powerful antidote to stress, offering a visceral reminder that we are part of a story that is both ancient and ongoing. The stones do not need to speak to teach us this lesson. Their silent alignment with the cosmos provides a stability and a perspective that is increasingly rare. Why does this resonate so deeply with us now, in the 21st century? Perhaps because these sites fulfill a need that our own constructed world often neglects, the need for meaning that is grounded not in commerce or technology, but in the fundamental rhythms of nature. They make the abstract concept of cosmic order tangible, something you can stand inside and feel on your skin. This experience of direct, unmediated connection to the sky and to our shared human past offers a form of wisdom that no screen can provide. It reminds us of our small but significant place in an immense and beautiful universe, a lesson in humility and wonder that is as vital today as it was 5,000 years ago. A respectful silence is now needed more than ever at these ancient sites. The very fascination that draws us to these celestial chambers also threatens their delicate existence. Every footstep on the worn path to Newgrange, every hand that touches the carved stone at the entrance, contributes to a slow, cumulative erosion. Before protective barriers were installed at Stonehenge, the sheer volume of visitors was literally wearing down the monument, altering the ground level and risking the stability of the stones themselves. Inside enclosed spaces like the Hypogeum in Malta, the microclimate is incredibly fragile. The carbon dioxide, humidity, and heat brought in by each group of tourists can destabilize the internal atmosphere, encouraging the growth of mold on 5,000-year-old paintings or causing the soft limestone to slowly crumble. This creates a difficult paradox. How do we share these wonders with the world without loving them to death? Beyond the physical wear, there is a deeper question of spiritual respect. For many indigenous communities, these are not abandoned relics of a dead culture, but active ceremonial places where their ancestors still speak. The star knowledge encoded in the stones is part of a living tradition. When research is conducted without consultation, or when tourists treat a sacred site as a simple photo opportunity, it can feel like a profound disrespect, a continuation of a long history of cultural disruption. The commercial exploitation of these spaces can be equally damaging, turning a deeply spiritual alignment into a backdrop for merchandise or a crowded spectacle. The ethical path forward requires a fundamental shift from simply studying these sites to stewarding them in partnership. This means that archaeoastronomers now frequently begin their work not in a lab, but by speaking with community elders seeking permission and guidance. Research methods have evolved to be as non-invasive as possible, using ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning instead of excavation, listening to the stones without cutting into them. Managing tourism is a complex balancing act. The solution is not always to close a site entirely, but to manage access with great care. This can mean implementing time ticketing systems that strictly limit the number of visitors per day, as is done at Newgrange and the Hypogeum. It involves building designated walkways and viewing platforms that protect the most sensitive areas from direct contact. Perhaps most importantly, it requires a robust educational component. Before visitors even arrive, they can be taught through videos and signs about the site's sacred nature, its fragility, and the respectful behavior expected of them. A well-informed visitor is more likely to understand why they cannot touch the carvings or stray from the path, transforming their experience from a passive tour into a conscious act of preservation. How do we honor the past without freezing it in amber? The goal is not to keep people away, but to foster a new kind of tourism, one rooted in mindfulness and reverence. By carefully managing our presence, we can ensure that the solstice sun will continue to find its mark for generations to come, and that the silent conversation between stone and sky is never drowned out by the noise of our own passing. The silent stones still hold countless secrets, but the tools for listening are growing more powerful than ever. Emerging technologies like machine learning are poised to sift through mountains of alignment data from sites across the globe, searching for subtle patterns the human eye might miss. This computational approach could reveal whether chambers in the Americas share a common stellar alignment with tombs in India, pointing to a universal human impulse or a deeper, forgotten connection. It may confirm if certain planets, like Venus or Mars, played a far greater role in ceremonial life than we currently understand. These algorithms can analyze the precise orientation of thousands of lesser-known sites in Africa and Asia, identifying correlations that could spotlight new centers of ancient astronomical science. Alongside silicon and code, the human element is being elevated through deeper collaboration. The field is increasingly turning to indigenous knowledge holders, not as sources to be mined, but as partners in interpretation. Their oral traditions, which have preserved star lore for countless generations, may hold the key to decoding how complex cycles like the 18.6-year lunar rhythm were remembered and passed down through story and song. This fusion of artificial intelligence and ancestral wisdom offers a more complete picture where data and narrative illuminate each other. The questions are also turning inward to the people who built these celestial machines. Bioarchaeology now allows scientists to study the chemical signatures locked in the remains of individuals buried at or near these sites. By analyzing isotopes in bones and teeth, researchers can reconstruct their diets, trace their geographic origins, and understand the health challenges they faced. Were the Sky Watchers a distinct social class, nourished differently from the rest of the community? Did they travel long distances to share knowledge? The physical story of their lives, written in their bones, can tell us about the social structures that supported this precise celestial science. Yet this promising future is shadowed by a pressing threat. As sea levels rise and extreme weather intensifies, coastal and upland sites are in a race against time. The very stones that have weathered millennia may now be lost within a century. This urgency is accelerating the field of digital preservation. Through high-resolution laser scanning and photogrammetry, teams are creating perfect three-dimensional virtual models of vulnerable monuments. These digital archives are more than just backups. They are new platforms for discovery, allowing researchers from any location to explore a site's geometry, test alignment theories, and study intricate carvings long after the originals may have succumbed to the elements. Rescue archaeology is becoming a critical frontline effort, prioritizing the excavation and recording of sites before they are lost forever. What profound insights will the next decade unveil? We may finally understand the full breadth of the celestial map our ancestors left behind, a testament to a shared human journey under the same stars. Our journey through these silent stone chambers leaves us with a profound legacy, not of forgotten superstition, but of breathtaking human ingenuity. From the solstice light piercing the heart of Newgrange to the lunar towers of Chankillo tracing the sun's path, we have walked alongside our ancestors as they turned patient observation into a permanent language of earth and sky. They were not primitive people, they were master astronomers and engineers whose work connected the practical needs of survival with the deepest spiritual yearnings of the human spirit. These alignments were far more than calendars. They were the central pillars of a world where human life was intimately woven into the fabric of a living, intelligent cosmos. The stones synchronized community rituals with celestial events, transformed the passing of individuals into a journey of cosmic renewal, and created a shared memory that spanned generations. This timeless desire to find our place in the universe speaks to something fundamental within us all. As we navigate our own modern challenges, from a changing climate to the fragmentation of community, these ancient sites offer powerful lessons. They teach us about long-term thinking and resilience, about building in harmony with natural cycles rather than against them. They remind us of the power of collective wonder, of gathering together to witness something greater than ourselves. Let this exploration be an invitation to look up at the night sky with fresh eyes, to feel that same awe that inspired builders 5,000 years ago. If you ever have the chance to visit one of these sacred places, go with respect, tread lightly, and listen